And a TGIF, everybody. Welcome into the First Call podcast for First Bet and Express Bet. He's Scott Shapiro. I'm Jeremy Plonk. He's sitting in for Jeff Siegel again this week. We've got 8 stakes races for you around the country. Scott, I like to call this week 1 AD after Derby. I mean, it's a letdown. I mean, it's honest. I mean, it's kind of like dating Miss America one week, and the next week you got to go back to reality. But look, racing goes on, and the everyday play is what it is all about. It's exciting talking about the Kentucky Derby and those horses, but the gambling day to day is what makes this engine drive. And we're back at it handicapping this week, and we've got 8 races lined up, and it should be a good weekend.
It was a special weekend last weekend, even though we didn't get the result we wanted in the biggest race. But like you said, I mean, not only is this the engine of the game each and every day, but I think we could argue that while the stakes races are nearly as good as last week, there's some great opportunities throughout the weekend and some good opportunities. Hopefully today, I know I have, or we'll discuss today for Saturday, but I do have some prices, so maybe we can get 1 or 2 home.
And some new opportunities this week. A lot of tracks kind of opened in the last 7 to 14 days. So the schedule is a little bit different than what we've seen. In Maryland, it is opening day today for the Preakness meet at Pimlico. So on Friday, if you want some help with that Friday card at Pimlico, Frank Carulli's got the late pick 4 analysis for you at First Bet and Express Bet. We're talking Saturday stakes races here. And for those of you watching on YouTube and on X, be sure to like this and share it out with your handicapping brethren out there and introduce some new people to the game as well. Into our podcast. For those of you on our traditional audio podcast channels, here are the races Scott and I will handicap over the next half hour or so. We'll start things out with the sprinters at Santa Anita in the Siren Lure Stakes. Then we'll go to Gulfstream Park for 2-year-olds in action with tickets to Royal Ascot up for grabs. The Royal Palm Juvenile, one of 2 stakes races there. That's the one we will be handicapping on the podcast. To Churchill Downs for the Mamzelle Stakes, turf sprinters in action in that one. And then the big card of the weekend takes place Saturday at Aqueduct. They call it Belmont at the Big A. I guess we'll go along with that. I don't know if you call a 4-legged dog a cat. Is it still a dog? I think that was Abraham Lincoln's favorite famous quote, something along those lines. But it's Belmont at the Big A if you want to play along. Man of War Stakes, the Nehru, take the A-Train Stakes, the Ruffian, and the Peter Pan. If you're playing that late pick 5 Saturday at Belmont Park, and you should be with First Bet and Express Bet. We've got 1 million first rewards points up for grabs in the hit and split. Scott's already got written analysis up on the blog section for that at expressbet.com and at news.first.com. So be sure to check that out. And we want to remind you, we're just a couple days away from the post position draw for the Preakness Stakes. That will come up on Monday, the 150th historic Preakness, and the last Preakness Stakes at the old Pimlico. We're going to be renovating Pimlico and reopening in a couple years. Preakness will move to Laurel after this year. But the Preakness Wager Guide for Preakness 150 will be available for free access beginning on Monday. Post position draw again for the middle jewel of the Triple Crown for Monday. Sunday's draw will be for the big Friday card, the Black Eyed Susan. So we'll know everything come Monday evening between the Friday and Saturday cards to come at Pimlico. Scott and I will handicap that for you next week, and we'll get you set for the middle jewel and the Triple Crown. But partner, you ready to get started here with these 8 races on Saturday?
I sure am. Those 2-day wagers, though, just let folks know those 2-day wagers will start on Black Eyed Susan. They can get started on those. There's some good horizontals to make up both of the days, much like Derby Day.
All right, let's kick things off with the Siren Lure Stakes, race number 5 on the card. Turf sprinters going 6 furlongs at Santa Anita on Saturday. Again, race number 5 on the program. A 6 furlong turf sprint is on the turf course proper, not down the hill. They run 6.5 down the hill at Santa Anita. This is on the regular turf course here. They'll come out of the chute, 6 furlongs on the main. And the Siren Lure, named for the Art Sherman sprinter of some repute back in the day. Before California Chrome, he was best known as the trainer of Siren Lure. Perhaps the Siren Lure Stakes has drawn a field of 6 in here and some familiar faces. In fact, familiar faces to the Siren Lure Stakes. But you got to remember all the way back to 2022 when Brand won it. Brand doesn't run very often, but Brand wins when Brand runs, typically. I mean, the record's impeccable here at Santa Anita and Del Mar. But we haven't seen Brand since July of 2024 at Del Mar. Can he win the race 3 years after winning it for the first time, Scott? Are you looking at Brand or are you looking at somebody else? Brand is the morning line favorite.
Well, he can win the race, but gambling on these types of, I guess I could say fragile, pretty convincingly here. only
Mhm.
raced once since September of 2023, as you mentioned. And then the other thing I noticed in this race, and this may not impact Brand as much as I hope because there's not a lot of speed, and he is coming off of freshening. He could find himself closer to the pace than it may look on
Mhm.
paper. But I'm going to take a swing in here with a horse that I think that's going to need to run at his best, to say the least, because he's moving up in class off a $40,000 claim from Librado Barracio. But I don't think there's a lot of speed, and I think Noble Reflection, as I've seen a couple of times in the past at Santa Anita, could steal this thing on the front end.
Mm.
Antonio Fresu will be aboard, good turf jockey, will
Yeah.
be able to relax him, ration out that speed as much as anyone there. And he's got 4 of his 5 career wins over the course. So we'll take a swing here, hoping that he can maybe bottom out this field gate to wire.
Yeah, Air Force Red comes off a win in the San Simeon last time out. We get a rematch. Lovesick Blues also from that race. Let's take a look at 2 of those contenders. The San Simeon, it wasn't a race that necessarily went to form, and Scott thinks we might have another upset in the Turf Sprint Series at Santa Anita.
Air Force Red is 5 lengths off the lead. Then comes Sorrento Sky and St. Anthony. They're at the top of the stretch. And it's Lovesick Blues clinging to a narrow advantage. Mucho Del Oro is asked to get by him. Lovesick Blues, though, keeps on going. And on the outside, here's Air Force Red. Air Force Red takes second, closing the gap on Lovesick Blues. Air Force Red, a gem of consistency, is up to take the lead. Nice performance from Air Force Red to win the San Simeon.
9-2 over 27-1 that day. And Scott, I like to see that in a division within a racetrack like that, that if it's a little bit of chaos in some of the other stakes races in the series, then there are no assertive leaders in a division. And that can be open this race up to a potential upset. Maybe it's Brand coming back to that 2022 and 23 form, but your horse on the rise can win a race like this because there is no standout in the division.
Exactly. And I think that might be the case a lot of times in these graded stakes or non-graded stakes, not at Santa Anita, but anywhere where, you get horses that aren't good enough to move up maybe into those high stakes ranks and maybe beat each other sometimes. But to your point, that's definitely worth digging into a little more to see if generally speaking, these are races that produce upsets or if there's 1 or 2 that dominate it and take the lion's share of the money.
Noble Reflection, Scott's top choice, speed to the inside in the Siren Lore Stakes. Let's go from Santa Anita to Gulfstream Park on Saturday, where they'll run 2 stakes races for the 3rd annual Royal Palm Juvenile Series. Royal Palm Juvenile Fillies will be race number 6 on the card. The one we'll handicap is race number 10, the Royal Palm Juvenile. Both of these are 5 furlong turf sprints with win and you're in automatic berths to one of 6 races at Royal Ascot that the owners and trainers of the winning horses of races 6 and 10 Saturday at Gulfstream, they can choose which one of the 6 races they want to take entry to at Royal Ascot. We've seen horses like Gabaldon last year take up that offer. George Weaver won both of these races 2 years ago, and he sent horses overseas and had some success. So this race has had some Royal Ascot implications, and maybe it will again. From a gambling standpoint, we want to let you know races 6 and 10 Saturday at Gulfstream Park will be money back specials, up to $10 back in your account if your win bet in races 6 or 10 at Gulfstream finishes 2nd or 3rd. So again, take advantage of that, a little win insurance, if you will. But Scott's going to give you the winner that you will need no safety net for. So we're trusting you in race number 10. Scott, who do you like in the Royal Palm Juvenile?
Well, I was looking at the inside because what you said about George Weaver, I mean, I went back 22% over 77 turf sprints over the last 12 months. Pretty good, but the rail a little bit too much for me to want to overcome. So I went with the opposite. I went way outside with a runner with experience at number 10, Fear. The son of Win, debuted at Keeneland for Jose D'Angelo, who when he sends his horses to Kentucky, they don't necessarily perform as well as they do in Florida, but they generally tells us that he thinks highly of those horses.
Yeah.
And more so than that, this horse was bet down to 3-1 in a 9-horse field. And 2 wards ran 1-2 with him right around the track. So I don't think he lost much in defeat. I think we saw that the public thought he had some ability betting him into the teeth of wards. He's got an outside trip now, which should allow him to work out kind of the trip he would want, hopefully not getting caught too wide. So Fear to me with the edge of an experience here at 8-1.
He's by Win-Win-Win, who was versatile on the racetrack, stakes winner on the turf, going a mile, also a major graded stakes winner, I believe the Forgo, one of the major grade 1 sprints. So he can sprint, he can turf. Let's see what he produces in terms of turf sprinters with Fear. But Fear's career debut came on the dirt. Let's give the fans a chance to see that one back at Keeneland with Kurt Becker on the mic.
Desire is last. Epic Desire is last and running 15 lengths from the lead. They're at the top of the stretch. Victorious Chances to the inside, chased by Vibora, and then Fear on the far outside is in third. The top three separated by a length and a half, then a gap of 4 more lengths back as they move to the final furlong to Mr. Sensei. Victorious Chances has opened up on a 4-length lead to Fear. Vibora in the final furlong. Maximus Prime is running late toward third, but it is Victorious Chances to win it for Gerardo Corrales. Victorious Chances in front. Maximus.
So we'll see if Scott's got the winner there in Fear, going from dirt to turf for the first time, trying the Royal Palm Juvenile in race number 10. For more on both divisions of the Royal Palm Juvenile Fillies and Juvenile, we've got a Meet the Contenders blog up at expressbet.com and at news.first. So you've got a lot of these first-time starters and experienced horses. Get to know each of them with some facts and figures about them in the Meet the Contenders series. Again, in the written blog section, news.first.com and at expressbet.com. All right, from Gulfstream Park and that money back special, we take you to Churchill Downs on Saturday for our next handicapping test. We've got another turf sprint like the Siren Lure, like the Royal Palm Juvenile. We are heavy on the turf sprints this week as we get our third straight grass dash. 5.5 furlongs for the Mamselle. Grade 3 company here. The Mamselle, named for the 1980 Goldenrod winner at Churchill Downs. She wasn't running 5.5 on the turf, though, when going long as a 2-year-old on the dirt. Scott, who do you like here in the Mamselle Stakes?
I thought, most turf sprints aren't my thing necessarily, but I thought this one, there were some angles to maybe take advantage of. Hopefully the 9 She's So Spicy takes a little more heat than she did at Keeneland in the Limestone, where she went wire to wire. They ran 1-2 around the track, her and Dream Away. I actually thought number 3, Kurt Becker says it better than me, but I'll just say Abiento. You know what I mean.
Abiento.
Abiento. That's it. I couldn't get it out. Man, usually can get them out. I thought she ran or better than maybe better than the 2 speeds, particularly Dream Away. So I thought that kind of presented some opportunity. And I went with number 4, Kilwin, who took a ton of money in that said race and was caught extremely wide throughout. Wasn't as up close to the pace as I think Louis Saez had hoped. I think Kilwin second off the bench here for Rusty Arnold at 8-1 makes quite a bit of sense to take a big step forward.
If you're a trip handicapper, when you get 8 horses back out of the same race, you better go back and watch some replays, right? This is people always say, I can't watch all the replays, right? How do I put the time into it like you guys who get paid to do this, right? We have the time to do it because we're getting paid to do it. But for a general tip for a fan out there, if you can't spend the time to watch all the replays, which I totally understand, common opponents are the time you want to watch replays. And you actually want to watch replays when you see trouble comments in the past performances, because if you take the lazy way out on those trouble comments, you're doing what everybody else is doing. A lot of times the trouble comments will be overblown or maybe even underrated. So let the trouble comments be a chance for you to go in and think differently than the public reading them at face value. And also common opponents. When you get multiple horses back out of the same race, that's a tip from me to you on races you want to go back and definitely watch the replays for. We're going to give you an extended look, about 40 seconds or so, of the Limestone Stakes at Keeneland. 8 of them back in this race, led by She's So Spicy.
She's So Spicy against the rail, leading it by 3/4 of a length. Dream Away goes second up on the outside, a length and a half as they round the turn. Then Me Governor third up on the outside. Afternoon Diva is in fourth. Mighty Ariu fifth. Kilwin is sixth. Has to go wide at the top of the lane and is still 6 lengths from the front. She's So Spicy the leader. Dream Away, then Mighty Ariu third toward the inside. Me Governor and It Ain't Two both working toward the center of the course. Kilwin is still far back into the final furlong. She's So Spicy chased by Dream Away. Abiento runs toward the rail. It Ain't Two, then Me Governor. She's So Spicy, chased by Dream Away. A final charge from Abiento up the inside. She So Spicy wins it.
Now, how do you separate all of them? Scott's going for a horse who had some trouble in there and ran towards, the back and finished in 6th, looking for the rebound. Sometimes in these big rematches, when there are so many of of them and 4 of them finish on the wire like that together, I just say screw it and go with a fresh face and try to find somebody who wasn't involved in that mess. I ended up in here with number 5, Micaiah, at a nice 15-1 morning line. We haven't seen this horse since last year when last racing against Good Cheer. She turned out pretty good. But what I like about Micaiah is a handicapping angle I call the LTB. Lay off, turn back, and bullets. Hasn't run in a while, so should come back fresh. Turning back in distance, so you don't have to be that fit to run 5.5 if you're a router. And bullets in the morning tell me that you're coming back with some intent. She's got all 3 of those factors. She won her career debut sprinting on the turf for Jimmy DeVito. I'm going to take a shot in here with the 5, Micaiah, who's well drawn in a turf sprint. That's the way I'm going with it in here. But you're going to get a fair price, I think, on Kilwin this time. I went after Kilwin at Keeneland. I thought it was the best bet on the day that day. And the trip and the race just didn't work out the way I wanted. So I could see Kilwin coming right back and winning this, though.
Without question. I like where you're going, though, and I think that's always a good way to look. You brought up a couple of kind of replay thoughts. When you see horses hit the wire together, maybe not this race, sometimes when all 4 heads are on the wire, even more so, that's really a good time to maybe say, well, that race wasn't maybe all that great if no one was able to separate, even more so on the dirt than the turf.
Yeah, for sure. Turf sprints are going to finish in a heap a lot, So if you threw out everybody who finished in a heap in a turf sprint, you're not going to have many contenders left. But a very good point, especially on the dirt. And races that should string out, when they don't, that's usually not a great sign on the dirt. Let's go to our next destination from Churchill Downs to Belmont at the Big A on Saturday. Again, late pick 5 with a 1 million first rewards points hit and split. That means if you hit the late pick 5 Saturday, yes, when you play with First Bet and Express Bet, you hit that late pick 5 at Belmont at the Big A. You'll get not only your pari-mutuel earnings, but you'll get your share of 1 million first rewards points. They can be redeemed for wagering credits. They can be redeemed for handicapping products in the pro shop, swag, a lot of great uses. Be sure to maximize your value as a horse player. If we're going to give stuff away, make sure it gets given to you. Play these promotions. The first 1 million first rewards points on the late pick 5 Saturday. Belmont at the Big A. We're calling it Aqueduct. What do you say? Mama called him Aqueduct. His daddy called him Aqueduct. I'm going to call the boy Aqueduct. I think was the Eddie Murphy line.
Answer, but I'm never going to. I'm always going to call it Aqueduct. When they're racing at Aqueduct, it's called Aqueduct to me. I don't know. As long as I find a way to bet it, which is the key.
Race number 2 is the Man of War Stakes. So much history in this one. Of course, the Man of War, named for the great 1920 Preakness and Belmont winner. The owner refused to run in the Kentucky Derby because it was in the West. He did look down on racing in the West back in the day in 1920. Take that, Bill Mott. You don't want to run in the Preakness. Man of War didn't run in the Kentucky Derby. So, look, it goes back over 100 years with owners and trainers deciding which races they feel are better to run in than others. The Man of War, though, is for one of the greats of the turf of all time on the dirt, obviously. But this race on the turf, we go 1 mile and 3/8 here. Field of just 5, so they move it up in the card early ahead of the pick 6. Do want to note pick 6 carryover today at Aqueduct, about 20,000 on the Friday card. We'll see if we'll get a 2-day carryover. Far Bridge, the big morning line favorite in here. He won the Pan American Stakes earlier this year. Let's go back and take a look at Far Bridge's win at Gulfstream Park. We'll see if we can beat him in this 5-horse field.
Is materialized for Farbridge, and he's on the attack now. Here comes the classy son of English Channel. Farbridge issued the challenge to Corruption. Corruption's been under pressure for a while. With fresh legs, it's Farbridge down the center. These two kick on with 1/8 of a mile to go. Corruption is dead game. Farbridge trying to press past. Farbridge and Corruption. Corruption and Farbridge. They put on a show in the Pan Am, and Farbridge gets the final call. He had to work very hard as Corruption gave him all he.
All right, Scott, can we beat Far Bridge? He was taken to the brink last time at 4-5. He's 3-5 on David Aragona's line.
Yeah, that race is enough for me. The inability to put a bigger price away in Corruption at 4-5. I know it was off a layoff, but the number, I know our friend Pete Aiello gave a put on a show, but in reality, the race wasn't that fast. When you will go back, very good race, but not competitive. But it wasn't, little bit concerning maybe that he, might not come back the same horse. So he's probably going to be 1-5 perhaps in this race.
He's going to be short. Yeah.
Yeah. So I took a chance with Anglo Fio. I had a good note on in the Elkhorn. He outran his odds, in my opinion, not necessarily the 13-1, but thought he ran better than I expected that day. I thought he finished better than I expected him to. Late pace rating, one of his stronger numbers recently. So hopeful with the inside draw that maybe Javier can save ground and get the best somehow at Farbridge. A little bit of a reach, but we're going to get more than the 5-2 morning line.
There'll be a little bit of pace in here with the cannon and capture the flag, but in a 5-horse field, they'll probably go pretty slow. You're going to have to finish and have some turn of foot, even at the back end of 11 furlongs. This race probably comes to a sprint in the stretch after going, fairly paceless through the first mile or so. Let's go to race number 7. We don't have to worry about pace in this 6 furlong sprint. The John Nayrud, named for one of the longtime great owners and breeders in racing over the decades, the venerable John Nayrud. The stakes named in his honor. A field of 6 in here. You've got Anarchist at 7-2. But what you talking about for Wesley Ward coming off a big win last time is 6-5 in the morning line, leaving the New York bred ranks. I know he's fast with that 106 buyer. Do you like what you're talking about or someone else?
I'm going to play against what you're talking about, not only for the reason you mentioned the New York bred ranks, but he ran a huge race, but it kind of came out of nowhere. This is a horse that struggled to beat runners and lost at even money by a neck, a half length. I mean, this is a horse that's had chances to win against New York breds and hasn't done so. The time off also makes me wonder if we can expect him to come back in the same form. I took a swing, and I know it is just that with number 2, Silver Slugger. He has faced far weaker competition than he encounters in this spot. That said, this is a good group, not a monster group, another type of grade 3 where a class riser can easily jump up if in the best form of their career and win. I'm hopeful that's the case. Full Move Madness to the inside probably will go. I think hopefully Silver Slugger, one way or another, can avoid getting caught up in a battle with him. But if he does, horse in the best form of his career, he's 6 for 8. He likes to win. And I just think if it comes down to kind of a little bit of a battle, he might have a little bit of an edge with his confidence right now.
All right, let's go to see Silver Slugger in Allowance Company down at Tampa Bay Downs. Jason Beam on the mic.
Silver Slugger still in front. Bar Down Express within a head now on the outside. Those 2 to the top of the lane. They're 3 clear of Gibran, who's up to a clear third. Then comes Get Even, Sir Robert Hall. Silver Slugger off the turn. The lead bumped out now to 3/4 of a length. On the outside, Bar Down Express with a final furlong, but Silver Slugger starts to edge away. Silver Slugger and Sammy Camacho by the 16th pole in front by 4. Bar Down Express going to be second. What a season for this horse. Silver Slugger's 6th win of the meet, 4th on the afternoon for Sammy Camacho.
Silver Slugger, Scott's pick in here, coming from Tampa, 8-1 in the morning line. You got Anarchist in there at 7-2, veteran 6-year-old trying to get back on the beam. He comes off a good third against Booth last time in the Count Fleet. If he can run that race back, Anarchist probably in the mix as well. Balanced group in the John Nayrud. It's race number 7, Saturday at Aqueduct. To the 9th, we go next at the Big A. It'll be Take the A-Train Stakes. I guess this is named to how you get to Aqueduct. I don't know. If there was a horse, Take the A-Train, I apologize. 6 furlong turf sprint. And why not another turf sprint on this turf sprint Saturday, Scott?
Yes, and again, a race that I did not even know I was going to be including until I went through the card. But I did find it to be one of the more competitive, maybe one of the better races, overall for bettors on the card. And there was a horse. The second reason is that there's a filly in here that I've been a fan of since her debut, and that is number 4, Love Cervet. One of 2 in here for trainer Christophe Clement, who's off to a good start to the early part of this new meet, even though it's at the same place. But Love Cervet, impressive win over this course to kick off her career. And then two two-turn races in Florida. The first of them, man, she lost to Nitrogen. I can't hold that against her. Nitrogen is an absolute machine right now for Mark Cassie after winning yet another race, the Edgewood, right, on Derby on Oaks Day. And then unfortunately, Love Cervet was supposed to race in February, as you might suspect. Something went wrong. She was scratched, and you could see a gap in her workout pattern. She came back last time, not the most comfortable trip, and probably needed the race. Clement decides to cut her back in distance. I think this is a pretty talented filly that hopefully gets the right trip.
Let's see her at her best back in January against the aforementioned Nitrogen, who has certainly franked that form ever since. This is the Ginger Brew Stakes from Gulfstream.
Widest of all as they straighten for the drive. 3/4, 1:11 3. They're in the lane. The leader is Corretto. Love Cervet dives toward the rail. Cerveta's on the outside, farther out in winning streak. They come past the 16th pole. Love Cervet at the rail. Cerveta's on the outside. Nitrogen between. Here's the wire.
I think I messed you up. I tried to tell you the pronunciation of the wrong. It was wrong. My apologies.
Love Cervera. I don't know. It seems French. I don't know what it is, but the 4-horse in the 9th at the Big A. That's how we're going to pronounce it from this point forward. Good luck to Scott there. He's got the 4 in the 9th. Come on. Let's go to the 10th, the Ruffian Stakes. One of the co-features on the program. I made this the Express Bet Race of the Week. We've got a good field in here. You got Gun Song, a filly who won the Black Eyed Susan a couple years ago. Morning Botch has been on some big stages in her career. Jody's Pride, second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies back in the day against Just FYI a couple years ago. And My Main Squeeze, she's obviously a top flight sprinter in the filly and mare ranks. As a 3-year-old last year, she danced a lot of the big dances, the 8 Bells, the Acorn, the Test. This year, she came back and ran in the Madison Stakes, running a good 3rd in there to Positano Sunset, who didn't come back and really fire that much to offer at Churchill Downs in a just dynamite edition of the Derby City Distaff. I wouldn't necessarily hold that against the Madison 3rd place finisher because this field not anywhere near the top flight group we saw in that one. But this is a good group for a grade 2 here. They go the 1-turn mile. Does My Main Squeeze get back to the winner's circle?
I think so. I really do. I think you have a filly that has shown an affinity for this surface. Has it shown an affinity? There is weather forecasted as both of us live in the Northeast, not in New York. But there's definitely a chance for there to be some moisture in the racetrack. Yeah. And most importantly, I mean, this is a filly that I kind of gave a big shot at a price. Picked her second to Copian in the Derby City Distaff. Make her opts for this spot where she's going to be a far shorter price. I think she gets the right trip out there. I think she's the best filly, and I think second off the bench. Oh, and I did want to add to the Madison. She was on the outside that day when the rail was the place to be. So even that much more forgivable. Positano Sunset did end up angling off the rail, but saved ground much of the way.
As for Gun Song, her return race at Gulfstream Park, she had been off since October. She came back in March. She was bet 4-5 in that race against Just FYI, who was also trying to get back on the beam a bit. It was one of those like high-profile weekday allowance races where you kind of had to watch, right, with some big-name runners and those fillies in that race, and both disappointed. Just FYI, didn't come back out of that race to move forward greatly either. I thought she got a little bit better in the return effort. Will Gunsong rebound off that effort? What do you think of her in this spot here in the Ruffian?
I'm concerned that I think her best races, in my opinion, have come at 2 turns. So the 1 turn, looks like Mark Hennig might be thinking that he's won, as a 4-year-old, that's what he wanted to do, running 2 straight races at the 1-turn mile. But until I see otherwise, she looks like a horse that kind of wants to set a pace going 2 turns, and I generally don't get attracted to those at 1 turn unless I think they're going to walk on the lead.
My Main Squeeze at her best was awfully good last year in the 8 Bells, and as Scott mentioned, if it rains on Saturday, as you'll see in this video, it won't matter to her.
Esternia's coming under pressure. Here's My Main Squeeze pouncing from the outside. My Main Squeeze up for the lead with a furlong to go. Alina's Forte Esternia fighting on Impel. Not today for Denim and Pearls. Final 16th. My Main Squeeze goes clear by 2.5. Impel's finishing with interest, but she's second best. My Main Squeeze the winner by 2 lengths in the...
We're both on the same filly here. My Main Squeeze, our top choices in the Ruffian. To the 11th we go. Next up on the card at Aqueduct on Saturday. So races 10 and 11 kind of wrap up the program. If you're looking at a daily double, if you like a horse in the race with My Main Squeeze and you can't figure out who you like underneath, maybe you look to a daily double to the Peter Pan in race number 11. This is a prep for the Belmont Stakes. It's not really apples to apples a lot of years. A 1-turn mile and an 8. the 2-turn mile and an eighth here, but to the mile and a half Belmont Stakes. Not only a direct translation, but now that the Belmont Stakes is at Saratoga the past couple of years at a mile and a quarter, this race feels a little bit more Belmontish. So if a horse runs well in the Peter Pan, we could see them back theoretically in that would be 4 weeks time with the layoff from here to the Belmont. Some Triple Crown nominees are in the mix. In fact, most of the field is Triple Crown nominated. Hill Road, I think, is the morning line favorite in here, and certainly going to be one of the horses to beat, coming off a third in the Tampa Bay Derby. Chad Brown wanted to get this one to the Triple Crown, thought maybe we would get a prep in the Wood Memorial, but had to scratch, I believe, with a fever was the talk at that time. So Hill Road back from that minor illness, and Flavian Pratt named the ride. Maybe one of the bigger names in this particular group, also third place finisher in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. What do you make of Hill Road here?
Well, Hill Road's a horse that I've been high on, and I really wanted to play back right off of that Tampa Bay Derby. But the fact that he continues to put races or struggle to put races together is hard for me to be attracted to at a shorter price in this race. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the race shape, and there is absolutely no speed here. So to me, I also think, Chad, I mean, this is the one horse in the race I'm fairly convinced hopes to run in the Belmont. I mean, others hope to, but realistically hopes to make a big, so to me, we heard Chad Brown before the Tampa Bay Derby talk about how that was a prep for future races. It was supposed to be the Bluegrass, and he ran like it. He didn't, he broke 5, but he didn't do much running, and then the intended gallop out. And I wonder if he's going to be back in that sort of pattern again, particularly knowing the pace. If he puts in a good second or third, I think that does him just as well for what his goals are. So I'm going to try to beat Hill Road given all those variables.
He comes out of that race in Tampa against a horse who came back in the Kentucky Derby, who kind of acquitted himself pretty well in Owen Almighty. So I thought at the time the Tampa Bay Derby was a much better race than the number was given him. And I thought the Sam F. Davis was a much better race than the number was given as well. I think with the good race that Owen Almighty ran when running 5th in the Kentucky Derby, kind of validated a little bit of that. And certainly Hill Road, I think that was a good comeback race. When you talk about a fast track down like there, that it was at Tampa that day, and the fact that Owen Almighty was so speedy, this was a good effort first time back. So if he moves forward off this race with those blips in the radar notwithstanding, if he's able to make a move forward, he certainly would be a major contender. But you don't like him on top. What about Captain Cook? This is a horse who won the Wither Stakes a couple starts back. I thought he was absolutely the horse to beat in the Wood Memorial. Rodriguez came in on the front end and just kind of outflashed him that day, showed more brilliance. And Captain Cook showed that he wasn't brilliant enough to chase that one and keep going. He ended up fading from 2nd to 4th in there. But on his best against the right level of competition, Captain Cook has looked decent. And here's his withers over the same distance and track.
And now tells Captain Cook to go because Surfside Moon was ready to pounce on the grandstand side. Captain Cook is showing more, and Captain Cook is now up by a length and a half. Surfside Moon continues to give game chase. Omaha is running on for 3rd. Here is Captain Cook with the 16th left to go. Captain Cook is up by 2. Surfside Moon is 2nd, but Captain Cook wins the withers. Captain Cook wins it over Surfside Moon, Omaha. And Mo Quality in 1:51.
Now, if you like Rodriguez coming up in the Preakness next week, you'd like to see Captain Cook do a little bit in this, right? I mean, a horse coming out of the Wood Memorial. We didn't get to see any of the Wood Memorial alumni in the Kentucky Derby. Grande was scratched. Rodriguez was scratched out of that race. So the first sense we get was the Wood a good race or not will kind of be how Captain Cook runs in this particular spot. So if you're looking to assess Rodriguez's chances for the Preakness Stakes, I think you want to see a good effort out of Captain Cook here, Scott.
You do, for sure. I think he's going to benefit a lot more than Hill Road from the probable race shape. He has that tactical speed. The interesting thing here is, I'm surprised that Richard Dutrow, if he decided to run this horse again at 2 turns, which did surprise me based on his quotes after the Wood, where he, did have the right to tire, kind of stalking or chasing Rodriguez, depending on how you look at it. But it seemed to be, you look at his pedigree, it's a little sprinty. I always thought that. And then, you combine that with the trainer's quotes. So I'm a little surprised he's running back here. And because of that, with the 1 1/8, and I think he's going to maybe go off the favorite with the race shape. I think both of them are the 2. I think it's 2-1, 5-2 with Captain Cook. I think he might be worth taking a shot as well, but not as confident against, because again, much like the Withers, it feels like this is a race, his race where he's trying to win this with no worries about anything else at this point.
The Withers runner-up, Surfside Moon, is back in this field as well, so you just got a chance to see him. Since coming out of that Withers, he ran a disappointing race in the Federico Tessio when running third in there to pay Billy, who comes back in the Preakness. So if you're trying to assess how good was that Withers, the horse who came out of it, the runner-up, could do no better than run third in the Tessio next out. So I think that's a reasonable handicapping assertion there. So if you don't like the two favorites at the prices they're offering, Scott, what is plan C?
In Todd We Trust. I've got Todd Pletcher holds a strong, maybe something strong two-headed monster in this race. And it's not necessarily because the horses are monsters, but I think it's because of the race shape. First off, my top pick is Vastamo, who I think is going to be a lot closer to the pace than one might think with the lack of speed, the inside draw, and something that you brought up earlier on, way earlier. Irad Ortiz Jr. with these young horses when he's on the inside particularly has been aggressive when he's wanted to and needed to. This horse has more speed than it may look in his last couple of races. Second blinkers. I think he's going to try to get involved early. And I think he does have, has his almost as good of a, not as good of as a resume as them, but I think he's got as much upside. And then the other one is Uncaged, who I don't think has run all that well. But with Kendrick Carmouche aboard, first time 2 turns, second time blinkers again, I think he could be on the lead. Problem is he doesn't break that well, but it feels to me that'll be the intent.
2 for Pletcher in here. You've got Chad Brown with one of the favorites in Hill Road. Rick Dutro's got a pair as well. Want to mention one other, McAfee for Dutro. John Velasquez will ride there. McAfee's the half-brother to Torpedo Anna, who saw her bubble burst last week running in the La Troyenne when she faded the last. But McAfee gets blinkers on, and he's going to get his third try here in the Naira Series this year. 5th in the Gotham, 5th in the Wood. We'll see if he can improve getting Johnny V, getting blinkers. McAfee also involved here in the Peter Pan. He is not Triple Crown nominated, so you wouldn't expect, even with a Peter Pan victory, that he would move on to the Belmont Stakes, but maybe they would supplement for the high dollar. That's a wrap of our 8 stakes races this week on the it's our First Call podcast. Scott and I will be back next week to talk about the Preakness Stakes. We'll move up a day or so on the calendar and try to fire off a podcast for you on Thursday for the Friday and Saturday action. A lot of travel, a lot going on next week. So tentatively, we're planning on Thursday, but stay tuned. Follow us on social media. That is subject to change, but I think we're going to go with Thursday for next week's podcast instead of the typical Friday launch, because Friday everybody's going to be wrapped up playing that Black-Eyed Susan Day card at Pimlico. So we'll be back with you next week for that. I'll be back on Tuesday for the It's Official podcast, where it'll be a lot of Preakness talk for sure. We'll talk about the hot topics in racing, including the Middle Jewel and the Triple Crown. And when I come back on Tuesday, we'll know the field for the 150th running of the Preakness. That draws on Monday night. Again, Black-Eyed Susan Day card draws on Sunday for Friday at Pimlico. The Preakness Saturday card will draw on Monday, and then the Preakness race will draw Monday evening at a ceremony in Baltimore. Are you ready for the big one, Scott?
I am, and I want everyone to be running in it that's supposed to be. You already lost the most important one, but going to be a fun time. We got some good new shooters in there compared to a couple of years past. I'm hoping that the runner-up in the Derby makes the right choice as well, and hopefully he's doing healthy enough to do so.
Yeah, journalism could be a heavy favorite if he shows up in Baltimore. Rodriguez also expected to be among the top choices for Preakness number 150. We'll have all the coverage for you in our first Preakness Stakes wager guide. You can start accessing that for free beginning on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody.